Hello, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place in the industry. Starting off today, we're going to talk about our Etsy integration, then we're going to talk about Filament, a little bit about OpenAI because it's funny, and then a few other updates there. But starting with the Etsy, we released the version 2 of our Etsy integration a week or so ago, and overall, it's been going well. Been getting good feedback from y'all, and it seems to be working really smoothly. But we did get a few reports of extraneous pricing, and we're trying to chase down that bug because certain files are not being quoted or price estimated correctly. They're going out of whack in some sort of way. Comment down below if you've had like extraneous or like overpriced, radically overpriced pricing, because like in context, something like this part should probably cost somewhere between 20 and maybe 30 bucks, somewhere in that realm. And this piece like this, the smaller kind of part, has support, but should be in like the $10 to $15 realm maximum there. So if you're getting something like uploading something like this and it's saying like 80 bucks or something, please tell us. That's very, very helpful. And lets us refine those things because we got a few bug reports like that. Also within the Etsy app itself, there is a button that is giving bug reports. Click on that and let us know what the bug is as soon as it pops up there for you. But that helps us a ton. We want to make sure this is active for you all. Black Friday just happened by the time this has gone out. So it'll be the big sale day, and a lot of folks end up getting behind. And we want this app to be available to make sure that people don't have to like put a store on vacation or anything like that, because that hurts you down the line. So you should be able to use our capacity to fulfill orders. If you're backlogged or if you're an international customer, you should be able to teleport your orders over into the States without having to do international duties and shipping and that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty good option in that regard. We're trying to keep caught up on emails and messages as far as support around this, but a lot of people have asked questions. If you have questions about the Etsy app, please watch one of our previous videos about it. They answer pretty much everything. But yeah, for the international sellers, having us produce your product inside of the States, somebody had said something about like pricing or taxes. Sales tax is applied, but Etsy does that automatically. The taxing issue is covered by Etsy and is Etsy's responsibility as far as sales tax and that kind of thing. They process it, they submit it to the States, all that kind of thing. It's one of the few services that is really handy with Etsy. Because yeah, the tax onus is on them on the platform there. I think the same applies for eBay, I believe, and even Amazon. Most of the platforms handle the taxing of the locale that the item is ordered to or whatever it happens to be natively on the platform so that you don't have to. They also submit the payments and that kind of thing. So you don't have to submit like sales tax to your state if you're in the United States because Etsy does that for you. But that's that. Let's see. But yes, please comment down below if you've had any issues with the Etsy app, anything at all. If you think it's terrible or think it's wonderful or thought it was too expensive or think it's way too cheap or whatever it happens to be. As that scales up, we will continue to reduce the prices on the API. There's kind of a critical mass on it. So we'll, the usage continues to expand, we'll keep on expanding that. As for the API itself, obviously the API is running this Etsy app. If we have that pricing bug, we're going to get that fixed before we release the public API. But the API will be going through and testing a number of different things. It's in verification here. We're also finishing up documentation. It is scheduled to be fully complete and ready to release by the end of November, but we may push the actual release out a little ways because we've got a lot of Christmas stuff and we don't want all of the influx of use on the API. If you are a company or a partner or want to be a software partner with us and have access to the API and have opinions about how to use it, again, do reach out to us. One more topic of like requests of information and that kind of thing. We are releasing the new version of the POD app, the print on demand app. That app will also have a full code release along with it. So we will have a 4-hour video of writing the tutorial for the creation of that app. And that app will be publicly available so that you can fork it and build your own versions, plugging into our API, of course. It is a very good demonstration of using the API and the value of using the API. So we will be basing everything off of that. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to have say on that. That will be available when the API releases the core code for the POD app. The POD app will probably be released a bit before the API. We'll relaunch it and re-release it in about 2 weeks. And it will be replacing the V1 print-on-demand app. That way, anybody who has just a file that they just want to have printed, if you want like a prototype or a sample of what our services produce and that kind of thing, you can go right over there and upload a file and get like 1 to 10 prototypes if you want to. That's generally the best way of doing it. Okay. All the things. One update on Filament. Filament, we have started production on 4043 PLA, which is a lower temp PLA. And that will be going into production in the spring. And in the spring, we will re-release batches and have continuous inventory of filament on the Tangled website, and with a price reduction from where we have been. So that will continue to be a thing. And then the site will have a few revamps and that kind of stuff, mainly around the subscription service, because there have been some subscription bugs on the site itself too. Our subscription manager has been having issues. Anybody who, if you're having issues with your subscription or anything like that, just reach out to us and we can manually adjust all this stuff. But there's supposed to be more of it automatic or accessible. Inside of your Tangled profile, you should be able to access turning on subscription, changing it, all the rest of that kind of stuff. Okay. That pretty much covers general announcements. Let's see here. Comment down below, as normal, any topics that you want us to cover inside this podcast. The podcast we basically build out over the week of things that have been going on that we need to talk about and then come out. The 3D printing industry does not have a lot of news. The biggest piece of news that I cared about was the fact that since 2020, the industry has grown by 55%. That's really bad. That's really bad. That growth rate for 3D printing is really bad. Right now, we're about a $10 billion market or so, and the market has been reasonably stagnant. We grow at about 20 to 30% per year. There's most of the research studies say that we're about 30%, and that's fine. I mean, that's way better than most industries. Most traditional industries grow at 5 to 10% a year if they're lucky. To grow at 30% is fantastic, but it's not fast. It's not like AI, which was grown, 10 bajillion percent in the last 6 months or whatever it happens to be. So the 3D printing industry has not been able to grow very quickly. And the reason for that has mainly been we've been so focused on building more machines and building more materials and stabbing around at the things that are useful, stabbing around at solutions without having the problems that those solutions are for. And what the issue with that is that when you are a 3D printer and you make a metal part or you make a plastic part, even if you do it a little bit better than injection molding or machining, no one really cares. Because a marginal improvement, people will not switch flows. To have a company switch from this to that is a big step. So 3D printing has to find the place where it's just 10x better than anything else. Aerospace has been a solution for this. Obviously, dental aligners were a solution for this because dental aligners needed uber customization and aerospace needed high complexity pieces. So those have been the places where there's been a lot of margin and a lot of growth. One of the best companies that has succeeded in solution to problem fit is actually, freaking space company. I can't remember their name now. They have the Stargate 3D printer. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. Relativity Space. Guys, this has been a long Christmas season already, and I know we're only at Black Friday, but it's been busy, and I might have just lost my mind just a tiny bit. But anyway, Relativity Space built a 3D printer in order to 3D print rockets so that they could get the geometry constraints and the part consolidation benefits. And it is a 10x improvement over other ways of building rockets. And that is true for them, sort of. They're going to 3D print large amounts of the rocket. They realize that rolling big old tubes of steel is way easier than having a 3D printer print it. But Anyway, Relativity Space is a great example of application and solution inside of the same company. They didn't try to build a metal 3D printing printer and then go talk to a rocket company and say, you should start building it this way, because that almost doesn't work. But the entire rest of the industry is trying to do that. Here at our company, what we try to do is really on the solutions. Obviously, we're contract manufacturers, so people come to us with parts to be mass produced, and they're trying to avoid molding or do complex pieces or high variation. Those are the standard solutions for using us. Because molding for many startups is a high upfront expense. Molding for large companies is a high upfront expense because effectively, if you're an engineer at a company and you're trying to convince them to use 3D printing, go to the CFO and say, here, we spend $10 million per year on molds. I can give you back that $10 million if we use 3D printing. And instead of using the $10 million for molds, we can buy a few printers to start that process. And then every year, the cost we save in new molds can go back into building more printers. And you create a lifespan, a study on that, and that kind of thing. Quite frankly, if you're wanting to have that conversation in your company, again, reach out to us. We can help you walk you through that conversation. But that's a really easy way of going about educating the rest of the company on the benefits of 3D printing. The engineering benefits, as far as part consolidation and part complexity, those are tougher because convincing engineers is kind of a slow process, and learning that is a slow process. It's almost a generational turnover that's required for people to recognize the benefits of it. So generally, it doesn't happen very quickly. And this is the issue that 3D printing has. It can't step in seamlessly with any other process quite yet. You have to build around it, which isn't the greatest thing. So that's what's been slowing down the growth of the industry. We haven't found the spreadsheet to the PC for the PC to where everybody has to use it. We don't have that killer app yet, which is slowing down the growth of the industry as a whole. And everyone is now consolidating and buying up machines and buying up materials and that kind of stuff, but have no place to put them. The only way a 3D printer company right now has been able to grow is by going sideways of like, okay, we do metal 3D printing. We made it so seriously. We were so serious about doing metal and only metal that we named the company Metal. But now, since they couldn't grow quickly enough, they've had to, okay, now we're going to do resin and wood printed and FDM even, and all the rest of this stuff. So they go sideways in order to grab segments of the markets in their individual niches, but they're not able to double down on a core competency. So a metal 3D printing company or metal 3D printing machine manufacturer has to just wait for the world to turn around, and that's not very interesting from a public market standpoint. Companies should adopt it more quickly, but they don't. And this is the issue with starting any startup or any sort of company, is that you have to grow very quickly in order to stay interesting. Otherwise, you fall into just a general parts manufacturer, and that doesn't look good on a stock. Okay, that's the only 3D printing news. Now for unrelated news. And we're probably going to do more of this because this is way more fun, and there's way more interesting stuff going on. OpenAI. So OpenAI had a very interesting weekend that should so be made into a movie. Oh, I cannot wait to hear the stories of how this went down because right now, no one has any idea what happened. On Friday, Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, was fired by the board. He got a Google Meet invite. He logs in. They say, you're fired. Half hour later, he's fired. That was it. Greg Brockman, who is was the chairman of the board and one of the co-founders of OpenAI, quit a couple hours later because he's like, Sam's out, I'm out. Then that night, OpenAI has no CEO. Mira steps in to be interim CEO. She finds out about the time. She found out the night before Sam was fired. She openly supports Sam in public on like Twitter and that kind of stuff. Saturday rolls around. Microsoft is now involved because they've put in $13 billion into OpenAI, and they say, guys, let's talk about this for a minute because we put $13 billion in this company, and we kind of were working with Sam because he's the CEO, and you didn't tell us until you told him that you fired him, and we kind of care. A number of other investors also had similar opinions. I believe it was on Saturday or Sunday also that an open letter went around to employees at OpenAI, and about 500 by Sunday night, I believe 500 of them had signed it, saying the board resigns or we resign. 500 of them signed it. OpenAI only has about 750 employees. By Monday morning, 700 employees had signed that letter, including one of the board members who fired Sam, Ela, who was the chief scientist at OpenAI. So as of Monday morning, OpenAI had changed. Here's the thing: as a CEO position, Mira gets the job Friday. Saturday night, Emmett Shear, who was the co-founder of Twitch, is given the CEO job. And he says, I'm going to research why this happened. We're going to have a third-party investigation as to why Sam was fired. The board has not given a reason at all for why Sam was fired. In their public press release on Monday, they said, we do not believe that we can rely on communication with Sam effectively. It was not malfeasance. They said it was not malfeasance, practice, policy, or even misalignment, or data leak, or anything else. Nothing egregious thing. No egregious typical reason for CEO to be fired. It's just we don't believe we can trust Sam to continue leading the company. Which basically, the only thing you can infer from that, and this is speculation, is that Sam was blazing ahead on something and was not listening to the board. And the board got mad and probably overreacted. Rather than sitting him down and saying, like, Sam, we're going to fire you, they just said, Sam, you're fired. So just very bad operational situation. And later on, the board expounded on the reason they fired him, and it still said nothing. There's just like, we can't really, it wasn't anything bad, but we can't work with Sam anymore. Now, a number of people have talked about who the board is of OpenAI. And admittedly, the board of OpenAI prior to this weekend was a little bit odd given the prominence and stature of OpenAI. Generally, you would expect for a startup worth $90 billion, you would expect it to have some more names on there. And quite frankly, almost nobody on the board is very well known inside the tech community. Sam Altman is easily the biggest name in the OpenAI saga. No offense to everybody else who's been doing great work at OpenAI, but Sam just has a lot of notoriety. He worked at YC for a long time. You know, he's been around for a bit. So anyhow, the board was kind of an odd thing. You see how it's pieced together from the standpoint of the OpenAI being a nonprofit with a particular sort of goal. You wouldn't want a traditional kind of corporate board on there. By the way, Sam, throughout all of this, I thought handled it fantastically gracefully. He was fired on Friday, said I was fired, loved the OpenAI team, left. He had one tweet on Saturday that said, I love you all, which spelled Ela, which is the name of one of the board members who fired him and who later flipped and signed the letter saying he would resign unless the board resigns. Funny little, you want to hope that Sam did that on purpose. It's like some little subtextual thing for people to find. And I believe it. Sam's been on Twitter for a while. But Sam went through Saturday. He went back to talk about being CEO again. Talks fell through. Monday, he went back to talk about being CEO again. Didn't really go anywhere. And then today, as of right now, Wednesday, Sam is the CEO of OpenAI again. It's all been returned. The board resigned, and there's a new board in now. Microsoft, throughout this whole thing, Microsoft found out the same moment Sam did when he was fired. The rumor has it from anonymous sources that Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft, and also a great guy, by the way, was angry about the whole thing. So he goes through is part of the negotiations and talks on Friday and Saturday night. Sunday, Microsoft announces that they have hired Sam and Greg Brockman to be the heads, Sam to be the head of a new AI research lab at Microsoft. Makes sense because Sam was just fired from being the head of an AI research lab. All of OpenAI's models and ChatGPT runs on Azure servers, which are owned by Microsoft. Microsoft is the primary investor in OpenAI, putting in $13 billion. Microsoft owns the servers, the money, and now they own the CEO. And 500, at that point, 500 employees had signed a letter saying they would resign if the board didn't resign. And Microsoft has an open offer to them saying, Sam is over here. We have all the money. We have all the servers. You guys want to come work over here? And probably pretty much all of those employees would go over there and work over there, which was a really interesting dynamic. A few people had pointed this out and said, it's really weird. Can you imagine 10 or 15 years ago, somebody saying, I'm leaving the startup. I'm going to go work at Microsoft because it's a better place. That's such a weird kind of dynamic because Microsoft used to be such this terrible bureaucratic corporate monster. And now it's like, oh boy, Microsoft is saving us. It's so funny all the way through this whole thing. So Microsoft hires Sam. They continue conversation, and then on Monday, Satya Nadella does an interview where he says, we're partnered with Sam, and we're partnered with the OpenAI, and we're close to both those partnerships. So no matter how this all turned out, Microsoft was going to have everybody still and still be able to do things. A little bit of a hiccup, but they still had all of the AI balls cornered and collected. It's like we got Sam, we got Greg, we got all the OpenAI employees when they come by. Mark Benioff of Salesforce put out an offer saying, we got an AI team, come work over here, OpenAI guys who are resigning. And they probably got a few, but all of this, the dynamics are so hilarious. And on Tuesday, Sam and the guys went back to negotiate a little bit more, and on Wednesday it was announced that Sam was the CEO again. Here's the thing. OpenAI is a company. Friday, as soon as Sam was fired, easily they probably lost about 20% of their corporate value because Sam has such a brand identity and has been the face of OpenAI this whole time and from the beginning. And he has the investor relations. He's a wheeler dealer. After the second day, by the end of the weekend, OpenAI effectively did not exist. It had no future potential. The reason for it is the CEO was gone. The primary investor had hired the CEO and probably would not continue investing in the company because they got the CEO. And all of the employees had promised to resign. Because on Monday, about 700 of the 750 employees had signed that letter that said we resign unless Sam comes back. So all of the employees were gone. The main benefactor was probably gone. And the main CEO and wheeler dealer was gone. And the chief vision guy, whatever you want to call Sam. Everything was gone. It was just the board in a room and the copyright for ChatGPT, the name ChatGPT. Everything else was effectively in the air, falling into the arms of Microsoft. OpenAI did not exist because there were no employees left. The CEO was gone. The money was going to be gone. All of it was done. That's how fragile that company was. Though within that, there's something really exceptional out of this whole thing that is just fantastic. The amount of loyalty and goodwill that Sam had throughout this entire situation, the fact that he was fired by the board, and everyone immediately said, "What did you do wrong, board?" Immediately. Sam had absolute and total trust and loyalty from the people around him. Internal, external. Every employee was willing to leave for him. His co-founders stood by him. Even one of the guys who fired him turned around on him. You take it with a grain of salt. Everybody on Twitter loves tech, but everyone on Twitter was on Sam's side. And he's like, until we know that you did something terrible, you're still a great guy. And Sam didn't do anything terrible. He didn't do anything except we don't know what he did. No one knows what he did. And apparently he didn't do anything. So it's so hilarious, but just really exceptional that Sam has the level and quality of leadership to where just everybody was immediately ready to fall on a sword for him. Like, nope, Sam's not here. We're not here. Moving on. And it was immediate and quick. Everybody over a weekend got on board with it. And the only people, the board had no choice. They had no friends in the situation at all. It is a fantastic bungle on their part as far as them trying to handle their goals. Because every possible worst case scenario that they could have imagined from their actions happened. And you have to wonder what their expectation was. I can imagine them thinking, oh, we're going to fire the CEO and replace him and we're going to move on with our life. But to not tell your primary investor, to not give the CEO some lead up time so that you have a justifiable reason to give of why you're firing one of the most famous CEOs in the world right now. To have no plan, no action item after that, other than CTO, you're the CEO now, and everybody else is going to deal with it. That looks like what their plan effectively was. Now, there's components of this to where to stonewall the board here a little bit. There is the conversation of were they taking an action in order to prevent things getting out of hand? Possibly. Sam's going to ship AGI or something like that. We can't have that happen. So we're going to fire Sam because he's not listening to us. That's a reasonable possibility. They still haven't discussed that, which kind of gives credence to that idea of we don't want to say we have AGI. We don't want them to know there's a robot in the basement talking to us right now, because then everybody knows there's a robot in the basement talking to us right now. So we can't give the reason for why we fired Sam, because we'd be admitting to that thing back there. And our awesome new stuff that is kind of dangerous, everybody will know is possible. So there's some credence to that idea. Or we had a robot shoot somebody last night because Sam turned it on. So we're going to fire Sam. Something along those lines. The AI apocalypse is a little bit overrated. There's plenty of danger within it, but it's also not as much danger as many people like to hype up these days. Because there's AI for all of ChatGPT's fantastic abilities. A robot with it in its brain can't open a doorknob. Just can't. So within that, there's that. So it's a weird situation, and we likely won't know what happened in it for another 2 to 3 years. It's going to be like finding out the cause of the COVID pandemic or something like that. It's like we'll find out 5 years after the whole thing is all done and all the dust settles. But this is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait for the book or the movie or anything else that goes through this weekend, because this whole weekend could be a movie. I hope Aaron Sorkin writes this weekend and calls the movie OpenAI, and this is the story of OpenAI this weekend. This event, this singular situation. And he can have flashbacks to the launch and all the rest of this kind of stuff the way he likes. And it'd just be an awesome movie. And he can continue his trend of making amazing tech founder movies. But anyway, so that was the OpenAI thing. I know this is a 3D printing podcast. It's our podcast. We can do what we want. The OpenAI situation was way too much fun to not talk about. I have very rarely watched drama so closely, and I watched that all the way through because it was so much fun to watch, and just so extreme, because a $90 billion company effectively blew up in the weekend. It was non-existent. And then the CEO and everybody came back, and now we're going on as if it's okay. But it's not. There was 2 days there that OpenAI effectively did not exist. And Microsoft was there to catch the whole thing, which Microsoft did in 48 hours. The CEO was fired in 15 minutes for unknown reasons. And the whole board was replaced and restarted up, and the whole thing rebooted in 4 to 5 days. This $90 billion company that has one of the most fundamental technologies of this decade, maybe century. So There's a few years left yet in the century, guys. Let's not quite call it that yet. There's a lot more cool things that we can have made. Innovation of the century might be a little strong. But that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Comment down below other topics you want us to talk about. Do tell us if there's some problem or something that seems weird with the Etsy. If it's overpricing your products, let us know, because that shouldn't be happening. We are not trying to gouge people on this, because we're well aware that we don't want to do that. So, but we gotta know all the time, because we can't always, we don't spy on you so that we can see all the stuff all the time. So let us know what's going on. Beyond that, yeah, really let us know how the Etsy app is going on, and then we'll see you here in a week, and we'll talk about the POD and the API then, because it's going to be fun. Have a great day, everybody.